Check podcasts.
The Bread and Butter Collective is a collection of hospitality professionals working together to help strengthen our industry to build strong culture, community, and sustainability.
I'm Calen McNeil.
And I'm Sam Jones. And this is the Bread and Butter Podcast.
Welcome to the Bread and Butter Podcast. Hey, Sam.
Calen, it's so nice to see you in the flesh.
In the flesh. This is good. I'm real. I'm real.
Baby.
I'm not on a camera. I'm not that way. We're in studio.
So you're back from a little tour of
France and
England?
Ireland.
Ireland.
Yeah.
Isn't that just England with a better accent?
No. Oh my goodness. Do you want to go through the history of the struggle of the Irish people?
No, we don't have enough
The persecution?
time. I was just teasing. I love the Irish.
Oh, it's awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, flying through Dublin was not the smartest thing I did because it made a 30-hour or, kind of like a 14-hour, 13-hour trip into a 30-hour trip. But
why is that?
Well, because their only connection to go to Biarritz, France from Dublin is through Paris, but you can go Ryanair direct. But
for like
Ryanair,
€25.
my wife's got too much stuff, so I tried to get her to pack it down, and it was literally like for four of us, it was going to be $800. Instead, it cost us to get from Dublin to Biarritz. It cost us almost $4,000.
Oh, geez.
Yeah. And I was like, it was very painful. Plus, it took forever.
Oh,
so by the time we got there, we were exhausted. And they're looking at me, why did we pick this route? And I'm like, I don't know. It started out this way. Then I thought we'd take Ryanair.
It seemed like a good idea.
Yeah. And then when I looked at how much stuff my wife was packing and the rules, and then the connection times weren't there. As it turned out, we could have easily made the Ryanair connection because it was all in the same airport. Customs was super quick. And then we were just standing in front of Ryanair. And we could have literally been in Biarritz in 2 hours.
Oh.
Instead, we didn't get there till, this was like 1 p.m. Dublin time. And then we didn't get into Biarritz till like almost 11:30.
So a good idea, just maybe not executed?
No, poorly executed. But of course, I'm the guy who did all the arrangements. So it was brutal. But it's good to be back.
It's great to have you back.
It's nice to see you. And we've got a wonderful guest today, Paul Stewart.
Nice to have him back.
Thanks, Sam.
The executive chef for Kool-Aid, among other things. You're also
Vice Chair
of
Canada.
Food Day Canada.
That's right.
What is Food Day Canada?
Well, I'll give you the Coles Notes version.
Yeah.
I mean, it started. It's really there's a celebration day of the Saturday of the August long weekend. So it's typically the first Saturday in August. Sometimes it falls right at the end of July. But it's that Saturday before the holiday Monday. So 22 years ago, my late mother, Anita, who was a pretty well-known food writer, she decided when the borders closed to Canadian beef exports, because there was some cases of BSE, or mad cow, we often referred to, she decided to do something about it because it's a big industry, $20 million a day in exports at the time, and she thought, I know these people, a lot of them, all these farmers, this is their livelihoods. What can I do? And before social media, she had her blog on her website, so she reached out to her contacts and she said, "Please send me your stories, send me your recipes, photos, whatever you have, and on this Saturday." Of the August long weekend, we're going to cook Canadian beef. So people did that. So what she did was called at the time the world's longest barbecue.
Yeah,
what it was called. And that happened for 2 years on the August long weekend.
Long weekend, yeah.
And then after that, it transformed because she thought, you know what, this went well, and it shows that Canadians have an appetite for Canadian food.
Yeah.
Why don't we turn it into something bigger than beef?
Yeah.
Why don't we make it about agriculture? Why don't we make it about the chefs and the restaurants and the people on the ground that are using those ingredients and whose livelihood, like the two of you, who we can support and get Canadians to shop, cook, and dine Canadian. And that's where Food Day started. So,
I love that. How long ago was that? That would have been
22 years
22
now.
years, yeah.
Yeah.
Because the BSC issue was that long ago.
Yeah, that's right.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's how the celebration day itself came about. And we like to say that every day is Food Day.
Yeah.
We should be thinking about where our food comes from every day, not just that day. But, the neat thing is that last May, after several years of work with politicians on both sides of the aisle in Ottawa, we got the Food Day in Canada Act passed through the House of Commons.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah, so now we get the proclamations every year from all the provinces and territories saying we're going to let our citizens know, we're going to celebrate,
Yeah.
and we're going to, shine a light on those in the region and those in our province that are making a difference. So, that's our feather in Mom's cap. That was something that we did for her because she wanted to see that happen one day, and
what a
she passed in
legacy for
2020.
her. I
Yeah.
mean, she was such an icon in cooking and food in Canada.
Yeah,
And yeah, it's nice to see that she's,
her memory.
It
her
will
memory.
live on forever.
Yeah.
It
in
will.
Canada.
Yeah.
Literally.
Truly
it'll live
amazing.
on.
I mean, that document, we saw a documentary of your mom.
A Nation's Table.
Yeah, Nation's Table. And it was incredible. And
Is that documentary available on YouTube somewhere?
Yeah, you
for
can get it
people
on
to see?
YouTube. And you can get it on our website. So fooddaycanada.ca, there's a
Great.
link. YouTube's maybe easier, but if we get people obviously to our website, they can take the pledge. There's a drop-down menu. Say take the pledge to support Food Day.
Yeah.
It's not monetary. It's just we're a
Commitment.
not-for-profit. It's a commitment to
Yeah.
say I'm a Canadian citizen, or I'm a farmer, or I'm a chef, and I'm going to celebrate Food Day in my community. And we have toolkits and ways to do it. So a lot of information on the website. Just so if people want to know what they can do
Yeah.
to support Canadian food, it's pretty much all.
I love that. And I kind of feel like I've missed out on doing more to promote it,
Right.
which I will rectify. But because there's so many avenues that you go in business and in food and dealing with all these different issues. But I think this is a very sort of appealing, also an easy access,
Sure.
and it supports all of it. So it's not just about, you've got Burger Day, you've got Coffee Day, or you got whatever, but Food Day
Yeah.
Canada it says it all.
Yeah.
You
And
know?
it's inclusive. It's free.
Yeah.
You can get involved in any way you want.
Yeah.
As a business owner, there's ways to do it. As just a citizen at home, buy something from your favorite butcher. Get involved online. Social media, of course, is sort of the way things have been heading
Yeah.
for a while. Hashtag Food Day Canada. Send us your stories, just like Mom was doing before there was hashtags and social media. Send me your stories, your photos, and your recipes, and we'll put them out and show the country, that we are, we're a delicious place to shop, cook, dine, travel,
Yeah.
and show the world that Canada is not just, the land of poutine and,
Yeah. Beer.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's so much more. It's diverse, it's delicious,
Yeah.
and the world is taking notice. I mean, we just had this past episode of Top Chef was in Canada. Well, there's a reason.
Yeah.
Because they can fly to all these amazing locations,
Yeah.
and the food can change in geographically, and all these chefs are just blown away by the quality of the ingredients here in this country.
Yeah.
Like, it's exciting. And we should be. Mom used to say, "Shut it from the rooftops."
Yeah.
Food.
Why
Canada
are
is
we
food,
not
she
talking
said.
about it?
Yeah, Canada's food,
Yeah.
and the world's a richer place for it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So back when your mom was being active in this, like really active in it, how is she able to parse the fact that Canada is such a large geographic region, and every region has its own foods, and they grow different things, and things come from the land and the ocean in a very different way from East Coast to West Coast to North Coast.
Yeah.
How does Canada Day define what Canadian food really is?
Well, so sort of two answers there. Early on, when Mom was gathering recipes, she wrote 14 books. This is her latest, Anita Stewart's Canada, sort of the one that's most well known. She did a lot of traveling, and she didn't make a lot of money as a writer, and not many writers do, but she was able to at least have some of her flights and some of her accommodations and some of her food paid for,
Yeah.
so she could travel to all these places and not just be bootstrapping it herself.
Yeah.
And then gather recipes. And she discovered through that experience that the country is diverse. And if you're on the East Coast or in the central parts of Canada, northern parts of Canada, West Coast, it's very different. Canadians have similar values, I think. I like to think, coast to coast.
Yeah.
Inclusive, welcoming. Spot at your table. Food is that great unifier. It supersedes religion and
everything.
and politics. And, but her experience was, the more she traveled, the more people she met, and she was a note taker. I mean, she was just like journals.
Okay.
She had stacks of journals, and that's how she constantly remembered, all these specific points and places and people.
Like
But
the unique characters of all these
unique
different
character,
regions,
because she's
right?
a bit of a historian too.
Yeah.
If you look at her books, especially the last 4 or 5, she tells a story about the people, even if it's short,
Yeah.
where they're from, why they're doing it, and connecting the reader to not just the recipe, which is cool,
Yeah.
but also who that person was. And
Yeah,
I think,
the why and
Yeah,
the
the
how
why.
and the who.
yeah, and I think consumers in Canada, especially now with these tariff threats that are going on, I mean, it's interesting timing.
Yeah.
But it's unique in the sense that Canadians are doing exactly what we have been talking about. Lead with their wallets.
Yeah.
Look for what's Canadian. Check labels. Put their money, hard-earned money, into the local food economy.
Yeah.
That's what we want in this country. So it's happening, and maybe this is just the unintended positive outcome that Canadians are they're being political with their dollars right now.
Yeah.
Which I really enjoy seeing. It's great.
Well, it's nice to have the sort of the infrastructure there to be ready to welcome it.
Yeah, for sure.
It's been going on a long time, but it's sort of, the Food Day Canada meets the current environment, which is something we needed to be doing like 30 years ago, 40 years ago, when you see the decline of purchasing in Canada and the amalgamation of Mexico, United States, Canada, and South America, where a lot of our food is grown. I mean, 80% of what we for vegetables, lettuce, and tomato comes from the States or Mexico or other parts, where we then aren't investing in our own infrastructure. So
We have become quite truly, and we've been sort of shopping with our blinders on in a lot of cases. The global food system, some would say it's broken, but I would suggest it's actually doing exactly what it was designed to do.
Yeah.
Which is to make mega corporations stinking rich.
Yeah.
Off the backs of low paid
workers. 100%. Yeah.
And that's what keeps food cheap.
Yeah.
So what we need to start asking ourselves is, why is something so cheap?
Yeah.
And
or why does it need to be cheap?
Why does it need to be cheap? And value food maybe a little bit more. And also thinking about where the food comes from.
Yeah.
And then how to put more, how far it travels, the environmental impacts, and there's carbon. Obviously there's output from food that gets shipped halfway around the world. I mean, we live on Vancouver Island. This place has such a great agricultural community. There's food all up and down the island. You can really identify seasons here.
Yeah.
You can shop, you can be eating fairly locally as much as you want. There's farmers markets everywhere.
Yeah.
There's great restaurants
Yeah.
who are employing people in the community that also could use the help.
Yeah.
So there's ways as Canadians that we can just take those few extra moments and really look at where our money's going and try to keep it here in this country, especially now.
Yeah.
And I hope, and you just alluded to it, that there's a system that we've kind of become reliant on. I hope the pendulum doesn't swing back to that. When all the nonsense down south is done, and maybe there's some sense of normalcy, whatever that is, that we don't go back to where we were, which is just cheap. Let's still
like
think
easy
about
access. It's kind of lazy.
Yeah,
it
is lazy.
And
let's think about where our food comes from in this country, and not go back.
I've got a question that I like to ask the people I think are really smart in the food industry. So
don't ask me.
I'll ask you.
He's never asked me this question ever.
Looking around for that guy.
But you've heard it a lot.
I've heard it a lot.
So we live on Vancouver Island. We have a beautiful climate, lots of rich soil. Do you think it's possible to be growing our own food, and how realistic is it to think that Vancouver Island could be self-sufficient for the most part with food?
Well, over the years, a lot of the ALR land, that's the Agricultural Land Reserve, has been getting parceled out and sold off. Some is going to be preserved. So that's part of the problem, is that, if we're selling the land that we can grow, the best land for growing, we are leaving ourselves, sort of vulnerable to being self-sufficient. So that's one part of it. Barriers to entry. So for new farmers, or for current farmers that want to scale up, there's tons of red tape.
Yeah.
So that's another thing that needs to be addressed, is that there's a lot of problems with getting to that point where, say, value-added commodities on your own farm, the cost of land, because let's face it, it's expensive.
Yeah.
And if you're a young farmer and you want to get into it, it's daunting to be like a couple $1,000,000 just to start farming. And then you have your quotas that you pay every year.
Yeah.
And so it's really hard for the next generation of farmers to look at, even if they're from a farming family, to look at what, mom and dad have gone through, be like, that's the life for me.
Yeah.
Struggle.
And struggle. And then the cost and, maintaining equipment. Like now these days, farmers have to be actually also mechanics, to keep their
Well, you
costs
got to wear
down.
so many hats.
You
'Cause
gotta-
you also have
yeah.
to be the business,
You
and
have
that's
the
one of
business
the
and all of it.
big issues I see. Because we deal with a lot of farmers, and it's like they're billing it's like a napkin, and it's incorrect, and they don't bill you on time, and then the delivery doesn't come, and all these things are understandable from where they're coming from, because they're having to they're digging in the dirt, they're doing all this stuff, they're fixing equipment, they're trying to run their farm, but then they also have to be business and a distribution expert and all this stuff, and it's a huge problem. But I think the government is sort of abandoned, or I don't know if there's abandon is the right term, but the supports and the facilities, because sovereignty, our own sovereignty is, and we see it,
Oh yeah.
with what's going on in the States, is at risk.
Yeah.
And so you've got the food component, but you've got your own sovereignty component. And we as a people seem to we're not looking at the right thing. We're not moving quick enough. We're not supporting well enough. And, I've been involved with the Fed Urban Garden, and even then it's just like, we're barely making it. And, we sell our product. So I could imagine someone who's got the land, like we lease the land for a fraction of what it would, we could never do it if we had to buy the land. But if somebody's actually having to own their land, it's just a non-starter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I recently was at a conference in Nanaimo at a panel about sort of redefining food. And I started the talk by saying, PEI has done a really good job calling themselves Canada's Food Island.
Yeah.
And, great marketing, and their government has gotten behind it. And people they identify PEI, Little Wee Island, as Canada's Food Island. And, good for them. What's stopping Vancouver Island from saying, we're the other food island.
Yeah.
But we're the West Coast version.
Yeah.
And here's why. I mean, we've got the Saanich Peninsula and the Cowichan Valley and the Comox Valley, and these are some like fertile growing regions. We've got seafood, galore.
Yeah.
Mushroom foraging, and then the restaurants too are world class. So from a tourism perspective, like this is a place to come and visit.
Well, and I think BC in general, like if you look at the Fraser Valley, like so much food comes out of there, and you look at Vancouver Island. So you have these two hubs that you could really, and they got Grow BC, and they've got these little programs, but it's almost like an afterthought rather than a forethought. And I think it needs to shift.
Yeah.
And it needs to shift quickly. And the governments need to snap. And, I meet with some of these people in government, and I just kind of get the sense that it's almost like if you're talking to somebody and they're sort of distracted with something else, like they're just like, okay, this is a really cool, like, I don't know how you can talk about food and not get excited and talk about the opportunity that we have and not be excited about it, because you're sticking your hand in dirt and you're seeing things grow and you're eating it. And then all the conversation that comes with that, I don't know. Like, I'm in the industry, but I'm just a kid from northern BC. Like, shouldn't excite me, but it does. So it should be able to excite other people
and
too.
You said the word kids. Get them young.
Yeah.
Make sure they know
like
where
the
their food
education
comes from when they're young.
Yeah.
And I think I benefited from that growing up in a home where mom and dad would take us to the farmers markets begrudgingly sometimes because there's cartoons to watch.
Yeah.
But
They didn't take you on a Saturday morning, did you? So
there was
sorry,
Saturdays or Sundays, sort of pick your poison. But we were introduced to people like real human beings.
Yeah.
And that was, I think, one of the biggest differences is that we made a human connection.
Yeah.
These days, I think that we go into a grocery store and they really only human interaction perhaps is at the till. And we don't really connect with food. So that we have to get young people to farms, to farmers markets, go into local businesses and meet the owners, meet the people there, make connections and relationships. That makes it just so much more, valuable. It's not just about eating; it's about connecting. Yeah, and that's what food should be. Yeah. It's that great connector.
Yeah, food shouldn't be a commodity just to come on a foam tray wrapped in plastic.
Well, it's so transactional.
Right? It is.
Like it just becomes about the transaction instead of about the soul.
Yeah, you're going to have to go through a personalized checkout anymore.
Yeah.
You can just go the auto checkout,
Right.
which I
So
refuse to
brutal.
do. I refuse those.
I try to reviews, but then all of a sudden there's all you've got, and I'm like, oh
Yeah.
my god.
Well, if there's a grocery store out there with no opportunity to buy something from a person, I'm not shopping there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It just,
Yeah. Well, and this is where you get to making choices,
that's right.
but understanding what those choices and how they lead down the pipe, and this is the education part of it.
Yeah.
And I think about when we were younger, it's different now, but you have your home economic program, but there's so much of life that isn't taught in school, like whether it be, economics or like financial literacy, just for balancing your own checkbook in your life and what debt means and just normal stuff that you're actually going to use in the real world. And then how you cook food, how you prepare food, what is food?
Mm-hmm.
Why are you making your choices on it? And then what does it mean to you as from a cultural standpoint? Like, how does it impact? How did your parents and their parents interact with food?
Mm-hmm.
As food is not just about nutrients
No.
to sustain yourself. It's about so much more.
Yeah. There's
Like
it's a food system.
Yeah, it's a whole system.
And you're part of it. And I often hear people say, well, what can I do to help? It seems really daunting. There's lots of ways to help.
Yeah.
And it starts with just trying to awareness,
Yeah.
education, knowing where your food comes from, seasonality. Like what season is it?
Yeah. What's available?
What's available
Yeah.
this year? And like preserve some, gorge yourself on strawberries for, in July, June, July, and when they're done, they're done.
Yeah.
And I think if we start doing that, we're going to see grocers have to make the shift too.
Yeah.
When we're not buying out of seasoned, imported, terrible tasting strawberries
Yeah.
in February because we have an emotional response when we're at the grocery store that you want them, then that will never change.
Yeah.
We'll never get to a place where that just, and there's parts of the world, and you just came from one on
Yeah.
your trip, where if it's not in season,
It's
just
illegal
not here.
You cannot buy and sell products that are out of season. Like you can't.
Really?
Yeah, they regulate
Wow.
their stuff to make sure that they're supporting local, but also what's not only what's in season, but they have an ugly fruit or ugly vegetable law. Like you have to sell everything that you have. Like
Yeah.
you can't just pick and have all this fancy, nice stuff and then throw the stuff that isn't
No,
nice.
just because it's not perfect.
Yeah.
And that goes back to food security. These
Yeah.
countries are tackling that issue.
Yeah.
Food waste is a big problem.
Yeah.
We're terrible in Canada per
Oh.
capita for food waste.
It's horrible.
Yeah.
We're some of the worst.
Well, and you think about the transportation costs of some of the stuff, like, so it's one thing to waste your ingredient, but if that ingredient came from, PEI, for example, like all that shipping and those emissions that are created there and just that waste
Yeah.
of efficiency when, it's one thing to not finish something that you got down the corner. It's another thing to not finish that same thing that
Yeah.
came from PEI,
Sure.
right? Or
Yeah.
wherever, or Calgary or wherever else, or even Fraser Valley.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because all of those, factors are in there.
Is the majority of the waste coming from individuals, or do you think that maybe the majority or our focus on food waste might be better spent tackling the grocery stores?
Yeah, I think both. Grocery stores, what's interesting is what I've learned through the work that I'm doing with food security, with working with the mustard seeds. So part of my job at Kool-Aid is to find new ways to feed clients.
Yeah.
We have a budget that we spend every dollar of. It's never enough. So we have to get creative sometimes. And that's, in this way, we are a member of what's called the Food Share Network. There's 80 other not-for-profits and
Yeah.
organizations like church groups and school groups and New Canadians who are members, and it's a very low cost. And then you have access then to the mustard seed food rescue system, if
Yeah.
you will. So those trucks go out. They have contracts with grocery stores. And that food then, this is food that they would throw out, but
Yeah.
most of it is still perfectly good. And this is one of the issues with what we see in this modern food system of ours. Those costs, those waste costs, are already rolled into our costs.
Yeah.
They know how much they're going to waste. They're not, oh my God, like it's
Yeah,
not a
no, they
surprise.
factored it
It's not
in.
a surprise.
Yeah.
We all pay for that when we buy food.
Yeah.
And do you think it's like 1/3 waste, or do you think it's
It's like 20 to
half?
30 is sort of the sort of the ballpark.
okay?
Sometimes it's higher or lower. Now that food and for the Food Share Network, it goes back to the warehouse, and then a group like ours at Kool-Aid have a time slot. each week we show up with our own vehicles. We have a cargo van, and the food that's been now gleaned by all the volunteers is given to those organizations. So they have a really awesome system. And in 2023, I know you had Tresca Watson on this podcast, and she talked a lot about it because she's on the ground there every day.
Yeah.
But they rescued the Food Share Network and the work at the Mustard Seed, 3.5 million pounds in 2023.
Wow.
And that's all food that was just going to go to the landfill here in Victoria. So that's food that not only, like you said, carbon footprint, not only did it not get thrown out, it went to people who are food insecure.
Yeah.
Because all those organizations, all 80 or so, face some level of food insecurity.
And growing.
And it's growing. And we can see it's on the news now. It's no longer just for the marginalized.
Yeah, that's right.
It's average Canadians
Yeah.
who are tightening their belts, literally and figuratively, because there's not enough money anymore to pay for what they used to be able to afford to feed a family or themselves.
Well, it's the nutrient density of it too, because a
There's
lot
that.
of the food you're talking about is nutrient dense. You know, like if you're looking at vegetables and fruits and things that can go bad, or
Yep.
you know, and because of budgets, they're having to buy cheap processed food that is a nutrient dense. Then you think of the mental impact and the social impact of that. Because now all of a sudden you're not getting enough nutrients, so your attention span is less, your productivity goes down, and especially with children.
Oh yeah.
Was encouraged by the federal government, you know, wanting to expand their school lunch program and do some of that. Like this all is connected to,
For sure it is.
to health and sustainability of a society.
For sure it is.
Right.
Typically,
So,
when there's a food crisis, there's a housing crisis.
yes. Yeah.
And they're linked.
Yeah.
Because when you're in a housing crisis, or you know, the economy is such that, you know, your bills are growing but your pay is not. Housing, you'll keep a roof over your head typically.
Yeah.
You'll pay your medical bills or your prescription drugs. Food gets cut.
Yeah.
So people skip meals, and that's a problem. So food's
Huge
typically the first thing to get cut off, you know, the family budget. And that's an issue. And that's why food bank use this past year is record high in this country. And the biggest, and this is stats that you can get from Food Banks Canada, the biggest increase right now is double income families.
Yeah.
They're house poor, a lot of them. They have housing, and they can keep a car on the road, and they can clothe their kids. But food, like, there's nothing left, so they go to the food bank. So this is a problem. This is where we need to be talking as Canadians, and Food Day is trying to raise that awareness. You know, it's more than just shop, cook, dine. That's really important, and that'll never go away. But how do we make sure we feed Canadians?
Yeah.
Because we all deserve to eat. I think it's a basic human right.
Yeah.
Is to be able to eat. And you know, we're doing a pretty good job, but we can do better in this country for sure.
Yeah. And I think the problem with it is the lead time. Like, we're in an emergent state, in my opinion, now. Like, we needed to be working on stuff 5 years ago. So if we start working today, maybe there'll be help in 3 to 5 years. You know, like we're always like acting and reacting, you know, behind the 8 ball, so to speak.
I agree.
And getting proactive and making this a priority should be, and this is what I love about Europe and France, and, you know, I'm sure they have other problems, but they really put a focus on farming and food security and health, and you know, every kid who goes to school gets fed.
Yeah, and it's
meals.
nonpartisan too.
Yeah.
And I think that what you're touching on right now is that if we had these 4-year mandates, it's not long enough in government to make these goals, because then the next government comes in, they scrap it. And we're kind of spinning our wheels. Yeah. We need a food plan.
Like a 20-year plan.
20-year plan in this country, so that regardless of what government's, you know, what side of the aisle, there's still goals, which is make sure that we're supporting agriculture, we're supporting restaurants and people in the industry, we're supporting the schools that feed the pipeline of students too. Like, there's a food system that needs support. Because and you talked about food sovereignty, if we lose the farmers,
we're done.
What happens now?
Yeah.
And on that note, I mean, is there not enough crown land out there that we can donate that to people who want it, or lease it out to new farmers? I mean, there must be a way that, as one of the world's largest countries with rich soil across most of it, we could, and it's all basically free. There's so much crown land. Why can't we just lease that out and develop it as a country?
Well, part of the problem is part of the challenge is how big we are, and also where the people are. So, and where the rich earth is too. Like, I think one of the interesting things that I've learned through Fed is the productivity of those planter containers,
Right.
you know, and so you can do it on land that is, you know, like currently we do it on land that you can't be built on. Like, it's basically environmentally siloed for 20 years. So it's got to go through their little process, but you can actually grow food on it. So it's shifting, you know, what you're thinking farming is a bit. But I agree. Like, you know, I think Indigenous people, I think is a great opportunity because they're often, you know, have a population that is way off the beaten path, because that's where they decided to actually give them land, is where there is no economic prosperity. You're far away from, you know, community, you know, enterprise,
Right.
you know, like you're 20 kilometers often outside of where the economy happens, but they do have land.
Yeah.
And, you know, maybe there's, you know, but it's a whole system that has to be created. You know?
Well, see, I can't help but think that I know so many people who over the years have secretly grown herbs on
like basil and mint
on crown land,
yeah,
right? Because it's not bad.
Yeah.
Like why can't we develop that for all of us?
Yeah, I don't know the answer to the crown land issue, because I mean, it's complex, and you talked about the First Nations. So much of this land really does belong to the First Nations, and I'm glad that there's those conversations happening, like reconciliation, like give land back.
Yeah.
And I think that if we were to do that, and we've all heard, you know, Jared Williams speak, about how, you know, a lot of the nations in this country land was taken, and they were just given sort of a remote piece that, you know, good luck.
Had no cultural significance to them either.
No,
it might have been on a part of what they had,
but they've had a Canadian food culture for thousands and thousands of years.
Yeah.
And stewarding the land and growing things, like they had agriculture.
Yeah.
Stuff that maybe we didn't hear of it's not broccoli.
What was that one root that he was talking about?
Is it campus?
Campus.
Yeah. So there's definitely something there that, you know, but it takes work together, sitting at the table together. But again, food is that great unifier.
Yeah.
And if we get to the table together and we have the right people, maybe there's a way to develop a food sovereignty and a food security plan for this country.
Yeah.
That involves everyone.
Yeah.
It's nonpartisan. It's not political. But it's
it has to
everyone
be
with a goal.
removed from the political stuff, because again, same with housing too. You know, and you know, then you factor in, you know, the opioid thing. We're dealing with so many different levels, but it all comes down to the same basic, you know, it's all about the human right of what we should be doing. Like, we should be taking care of our people.
We should.
I mean, there's people
they eat.
with severe economic issues. There's people with severe mental issues, addiction issues, housing insecurity issues, and you almost need all of it is sort of combined. Like, I think there needs to be, you know, you have all these departments, government departments siloed, and you have all these economic interests siloed too. So you don't have, you know, free enterprise figuring out a way to, you know, entrepreneurs are pretty smart. And, you know, even if you're just using their ideas or having some on the panel to try to game these things and think of ways and solutions, I think it's bringing everybody in and creating, you know, a panel that is separate from government, that is protected from government,
right?
You know, and has weight.
Yeah.
You know,
and the goal is long-term, generational food security.
Yes, exactly.
And
like
sovereignty.
Multi-generational.
Like not just a 4-year plan, or not just, you know, a government.
Oh, let's do this today because today this is the issue.
I get the trophy, and then somebody else will scrap it. Yeah. We need to have long-term goals in this country for just that. Yeah, for security 100%. And sovereignty.
It feels like there's so many issues in the world that can be solved, and food security is wrapped up in all this in terms of, like, stop allowing big corporations to...
They need to be out of our housing, and they need to be out of our food.
in our healthcare system.
Yeah.
Why is TELUS involved in our healthcare all of a sudden? Why are big grocery chains fully in control, even when they say,
Follow the money.
we're
follow
going
the
to
money.
lower the prices, and they just don't.
Yeah.
They just don't do it. So they're working against the Canadian people,
for sure.
think. And I think if we solve that problem, and I'm not making any suggestions how we solve that problem, but if that problem were to be solved,
We take up guns. That's what we do.
I see. I didn't want to say that.
Oh, sorry.
I didn't want to say that. However, yeah, maybe I'll get a bow and arrow. I'm not a big gun guy, but wouldn't that go a long way in terms of dealing with the food security when it's more egalitarian and dispersed? It sounds kind of socialist, but no. I mean, we all have to be able to afford it.
I think that when government sees the public demanding it, they change.
Yeah.
And again, I don't want to keep going back to European nations necessarily, but when it comes to protests, when it comes to making those changes, it's sort of nonstop. You're on the street every day until something's changed.
Yeah, well, look at the French farmers, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, but they schedule it. Like, even if they've solved their current issue, next year at the exact same time or next quarter at the exact same time, they're out on the street because they realize that you can't sit on your laurels.
Right.
Because because of the government stuff. So if they say, okay, well, we're going to satisfy this issue that you got today, they're like, okay, well, we're going to be here next month.
Right.
We're going to be here next year at this exact day. We're shutting the streets down again. Oh, well, yeah, because we're going to make sure that we hold your feet to the fire.
Right.
Because it's a priority. And if you do that, governments have no choice. So there's a baseline covered.
Yeah.
Which when you talk about, socialism or communism or these different types of things, like, there should be no question that healthcare, housing, and food should be socialized. 100% in the best interest of everybody, because the outcomes for your country are tenfold in those areas.
That's health.
Yeah.
I mean, those you can see it's a direct correlation between those things. We see it in the work that we're doing at Kool-Aid, is that when you get people into housing, you get them fed well, and you get them, they feel secure now. That insecurity is now gone. Then you can start working on some of the complex mental health and the addiction issues. Yeah. Until you get there to that point, that starting point, like basic, like roof over your head and food in your belly, it's really difficult to tackle those systemic issues. Yeah. So that's why I feel like, as Canadians, we can do better, and it doesn't have to be political, And I stay out of the homelessness debate. Yeah. It is divisive. Yeah. I don't judge a person for why they're, and I don't speculate as to why they're there. Yeah. I just know that they're hungry, and that meal might make them feel cared for
in the moment.
One moment today. Yeah. Like that to me is our job in the food service, is to make that person feel like they're thought of today, because a lot of the rest of the day is going to be maybe really not bad. Yeah. So, I try to stay out of the way I look at it is, they're human beings. Yeah. And they deserve a meal just like anyone. Yeah. And I'm not going to speculate why. It doesn't matter to me. Yeah. Why they're there. I don't obviously want them to be. Yeah. But once we get them into housing, that's a good first step. Then we start feeding them, and both sort of happen simultaneously. But I think that's what they deserve.
I think to me, and I agree with you 100%, the problem I think that we have is it becomes political. Then it becomes fragmented because you have all these different points of contact, but also points of struggle. So the housing issue, we have enough houses, and people think, we're housing short. It isn't. With the houses we have, the value is up. Like, we have enough houses. And the other thing that is going to happen as baby boomers retire and move on to their next chapter of their existence in heaven or wherever, I hate to say it, like, move on to the next life, is that we're going to have way too many houses. And it's like, but we just go in this window of this 4-year or 8-year or whatever cycle where we're like, this is the problem. Guys, like, we have an affordability crisis, which is causing a lot of this stuff. So the minute you make housing, food, and health a human right, which we talk about it in Canada, and everybody would say, well, we're a socialized system, we do have these human rights, but it's done off the side of the desk rather than making it a priority. because then you all of a sudden solve a lot of these base level things that, so when somebody becomes homeless or they're self-medicating because of trauma or whatever, what have you, it starts with insecurity, financial insecurity, housing insecurity, and then all of a sudden they're dealing with their stresses with medication. They can't get housing, so they lose their housing. So you've got these group of people that just fall into this crack, and it's a byproduct of the system, in my opinion, when we as a country should be prioritizing that, right? In Canada, and I keep going back to this all the time, Canada used to be world renowned for their social housing, like world renowned. So in the 80s, when interest rates just shot up, they sold off all their social housing, privatized it.
Right.
And then all of a sudden now the private market, like for profit.
It's for profit.
And you cannot have for-profit housing. Like there's a place for businesses and construction guys and
sure.
all that stuff, but it's got to be regulated because, when you look at the countries that are don't have these issues, it is very socialized, and they mandate it and they control it and all that stuff. And to me, it's like you shouldn't be for profit. You have these companies, like, I don't want to name them, but for fear of being sued, but they're buying entire neighborhoods of residential. So not only are they taking control of that equity, the future growth and future prosperity of people, because now they're basically just turning it into rental housing. And unless they are forced to sell it back to the public, those people are out of the economic viability of owning real estate forever. And
for sure.
you move that, so the supply and demand becomes different. So the free market housing is different because that's not free market housing. If you've got a corporation owning 4,000, 5,000, 10,000, 100,000 units, that's taken out of the market. It's not free market. It'll never come back because they're publicly traded companies.
Yeah.
And then the corporation, who has in the U.S. has the same rights as an individual,
Right.
will never ever give it up.
No.
Ever. And that's, to me, that's where the affordability
Not when the
comes
profits
in.
are so good.
Yeah. And why would they? So if an individual, I buy a house, a lot of the money we've probably all made in our lives has come from owning real estate and, then borrowing against it. And then, you keep
Extend
uptick.
yourself.
So if you don't have access to that, you don't ever have that gain.
No.
And how are you ever going to afford to get into the market?
Yeah. I often wonder about my own kids. I have 3 awesome sons, and how am I going to help support them to get into their own home? And I mean, Victoria is not a cheap place to live.
Yeah.
So they're all sort of looking at parts of Canada that might be more affordable, but it'd be sad to lose people that want to be here.
And this is the employment thing too.
They can't afford to be.
Yeah. And if you have a staff member that can't afford to live in the community, that's a problem.
It's huge.
Yeah. It's so frustrating to me.
Totally.
Because it literally needs to be regulated, controlled, and you need to remove those profiteers out of it.
Yeah.
Like
it's not even that many of them.
No. They're consolidating too.
Right. So there's not many people to deal with who are just greedy people.
Well, listen, the money goes where the money goes. Like it's one thing to because I want to refrain from assigning blame or targeting people, say you're a greedy, like it's the system that's created it.
Yeah.
So
just like the food system.
Yeah, the food system
is the way it was created.
It's designed. This is all by design. This is capitalism, right? And capitalism eats itself. And I think we're at close to the end stage of capitalism because it's unsustainable.
Isn't that just greed, though? When capitalism eats itself, it's so greedy that it.
I know, but it's self-sustaining. So when you look at greed to me is individual. So is there greedy individuals? 100%.
Especially if corporations are individuals.
Well, this is where it is. It's the institutionalization of that greed.
Yeah.
So when you start a business, you start a corporation, it's going concern. So the corporation has to succeed. And the directors of that corporation have to make decisions in the best interests of that corporation. So they may have like altruistic tendencies themselves, but the corporation demands the profit. And then if the shareholders involved, then you have all these anonymous people that are all moving in one direction. So it becomes like the inertia of it becomes almost uncontrollable.
Yeah.
So regulation is how you monitor that and keep it and stop this entity to being, so in the US, they made these corporations individuals, gave them the same rights as an individual human being, which is insane.
Yeah.
So then they stopped regulating it. So okay, you're like Standard Oil got separated when I think it was $100 million valuation, and they broke it into 5 different parts. That was done by the Justice Department or the SEC or whatever in the United States. Now you have Microsoft worth $4.5 trillion. You've got, Apple, $2 or $3 trillion corporations. They're too big. So now they're bigger than countries. And how do you rein that back in?
Yeah.
Right. And that is a failure of government. It's a failure of stopping these people that are bribing these politicians through the back door. And individually, when you look at it at one spot, you go, oh, well, I just took this a little bit, or I did it for this reason, or they've kind of justified it. But the entity is the issue, not the individuals. Like, it's easy to go, oh, those are greedy. They're really not. It's operating as it was designed. And we need to take it a huge step back and then create, it's almost like they talk about this, starting from zero again.
Mm-hmm.
And there's an aspect of that because there's a movement that is looking to destroy everything, but they're looking to destroy it so they can profit from it and sell it and carve it up. Right. But you almost need to reset. They talk about this great reset, which is literally.
Well, there were simpler times. I think about, when my grandma talked about food, she lived to be almost 101. She lived through the Great Depression. They were farming. Everyone farmed. They grew their own food. I think it's time to get back to simpler times where we're not so money focused and we're looking at, your basic needs.
Yeah.
So certainly housing's one, and that's a whole different conversation. We get people to know how to grow their own food and what that really means and connect them to that. That's solving a lot of problems too. A lot of people are planting lawns when you could be growing food.
Yeah.
Fed is a great example. This is land that can't really be used for much, but by putting soil in pots on top, you can produce an incredible amount of food.
Yeah.
And that serves so many people in the community, including Kool-Aid. I mean, we benefit from the work at Fed as well.
Yeah.
And I think that we have to get back to simpler times when it's not just money focused.
Yeah.
Where your food comes from. Again, I keep going back to food because that's my wheelhouse. But I know when you start kids early learning how to plant food and get them in public schools, education is really big. If we get school districts to really make that a priority, show kids how to grow, teach them about the seasons, believe it or not, teach them how to preserve food.
Yeah.
So that when there is a season, what to do with it all when it's in abundance and put it away. I mean, I grew up having a fruit cellar. I feel spoiled.
Yeah.
I just figured everyone had them.
Yeah.
Not many people know what a cold cellar is.
Yeah.
But we would put food away when it was in
even
season.
Canning and like the whole thing.
Jar
right?
canning. And we fill our fruit cellar and we have bushel baskets. And that's when, you go to the farmer's market for massive amounts of food. Right. And sometimes, and this is a different conversation perhaps, but farmers markets are kind of craft now. Yeah. And you end up you've priced a lot of people out of it. Yeah. So I think that we need to sort of change that. That model needs to be looked at. Like, a lot of people I love local food, but man, I can't afford $9 pints of strawberries. Yeah. And I know that farmers deserve that. I get it. Yeah. And they're paying a living wage and all this, and that's great. But how do we get everyone access? Yeah. Right. And how do we make sure everyone can do those, have access to that great local food? It's a tough conversation, and there's a lot of moving parts. But I
think there's a way to do it through tax rebates.
Right.
So where you actually
support
make
farmers.
Yeah, you make, buying local tax deductible. Yeah. So, say you're in a high income bracket where you're getting taxed at say 40% or something, and you buy $1,000 a year worth of vegetables or fruits from farmers, and you have the receipt, you make it tax deductible.
Sure.
Like it's Like
That's an interesting idea.
so many things that just like with Fed, because one thing that we're discovering through growing on these plants is the nutrients are actually regenerating the soil underneath it.
Of course, yeah.
So there's an environmental component too. And then if you get landowners that get tax breaks, there's a lot of this stuff can be solved through taxation and tax breaks. And if you want to, and one of the things, it'll be a capacity issue, but if you actually give tax breaks for people that buy local food, then you're actually really kickstarting it, because then their capacity will grow. And then other farmers will be incentivized to get into the business. And it pays. Like, I read this book, The 10 Best Things First, and it talks about globally where you invest money to get the best outcome. And school lunches is one of them. Farming, immigration, surprising, is one of the highest returns. So when people are talking about immigration and criticizing it and condemning it, the economic return for the host country as well as the country that they came from, it's something like 30x or 40x per dollar.
Wow.
Right? And so when you look at the incentives for, I think this tax subsidy for buying local or buying farms, and you can create the criteria what that looks like, would be incredible, because then all of a sudden now people are consuming like heartier food, more nutrient dense.
Yeah.
They're supporting local economy. They're supporting local farmers, which actually can make it sustainable.
And incentivizing it.
Yes, and incentivizing it.
Mm-hmm.
I think we just
They solve the world's problems.
So right there, boom.
Yeah. Kind of on a couple points back, I want to just touch on something, because it's occurred to me as of late, as I get a little bit older, I've really been caught up in the last 30 years about this culture of growth and this entrepreneurial business culture where corporations must grow. Like when we're talking about what CEOs have to do for their corporations, they don't have to make them more money. That's just what we think, because that's a culture that business is brought up in. But for me, as I get older, I want a smaller amount that sustains my lifestyle and my happiness, right? And if big corporations thought more along the lines of just sustainability as opposed to growth without worrying about the consequences and without regard to how much they're growing, if we just change that business culture and that entrepreneurial culture, that you don't always have to get bigger.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's okay to have what you already have, make it work better for you, and think about it more as like contributing to your lifestyle as opposed to contributing to your bottom dollar, which then is your lifestyle.
Well, I think that part of that is, it's just like, it's a cultural shift, like a mental shift. And it also starts in school, where you're actually, educating kids to care about their community, care about their neighbor. And how much better is it? Like, it's like, to me, it's like it's a no-brainer to do that, because if you look at the Royal Bank, for example. So the Royal Bank makes, billions of dollars. So, okay, if they don't do anything, any new project, they don't buy any new, they're still going to make billions of dollars. Like, how much money do they need to make?
Yeah.
And then, you look at what they do with that money. So they'll do stock buybacks to prop up the price so they can get bonuses. Like, none of that does anything for humanity. It does nothing for the community. Or average Canadians. And it's on the backs of the workers.
Yep.
Like, it always is on the back of their own customers.
Yeah.
Which is madness. And I think you can do it in a way that isn't like, and this is where you get into this, the political stuff, where you're just spinning your wheels. Like, none of it matters. Like, what it really matters is like, how are we treating each other? Like, what are our outcomes for our own community, and how do we make it better?
Yeah.
How
do we take care of our basic needs? To me, food and water really are so essential.
Yeah.
And if we give up, our ability to take care of those things, sustainably, and for the long haul, especially on an island like this one, we are at the whims and at the mercy of mega corporations whose mandate is simple.
Yeah.
As much profit as possible.
Yeah. Suck it
every
dry.
Single bit. And this is, I think, where there are two sort of planets are colliding.
Yeah.
Is you have a lot of us who are like, well, we kind of know what, like you said, Sam, how much is enough?
Yeah.
Like billions, trillions? Like how
Yeah.
much is enough? And if we teach kids when
And
they're,
to what end?
to what end?
Yeah.
Like, and on whose backs?
Yeah.
And you know, it's usually third world countries that suffer.
Yeah.
Those closest to the equator.
Yeah.
You know, we are milking as much profits out of the planet as possible. But these are mega corporations.
Yeah.
So this is why, again, if we can circle back, this is why shopping locally, finding
Yeah.
out who your farmer is, meeting them, taking your kids to a market, really making those human connections. You are doing your part, and you're getting away from that like capitalist driven
Yeah.
mega corporation food system that we are all in,
Yeah.
like it or not.
Yeah. No, for sure.
And you can't get away from it entirely,
yeah.
but you can find little things, little gems in your community. People making, products that are just trying to support their families.
Yeah.
And talk to them and get their story. And then one thing Mom was great at is getting the story.
Yeah.
Because it's more than just the recipe. And like you said earlier, Calen, it's more than just sustenance.
Yeah.
There's a story behind food in this country. So go find it.
Yeah.
And wherever you live,
Yeah.
and go seek it out. And you won't regret it. It's there for you right now if you go find it.
Let's end on that note. That is amazing
Yeah.
finish.
That's
And
wonderful.
Paul, thank you so much. This discussion,
My pleasure.
we could talk for 3 or 4 hours.
We probably
and
could.
We'll have you on
You
again.
probably could.
But it's yeah.
Just kind of scratching the surface on this one. It feels like it's such a. There shouldn't be any politics involved.
No.
Like this should
It's
never
complex, too. It's
never
really
be
complex.
political. This
No,
should
food
be
should not be
from our
political.
hearts, right?
Well, I'm getting emotional because it's
Yeah,
simple.
Yeah.
it is simple.
There is. It
Yeah.
doesn't have to be complicated, and it doesn't have to be daunting for average Canadians to make a difference. And the hope that I'm seeing in this country is that people are. They're leading with their wallets and they're saying, "I want to know what's Canadian. I want to."
We can see what's possible.
We know what's possible. So let's
Yeah.
not swing back
100%.
to blinders on, and just whatever's cheap and who cares where it's from. We need to think if we want to be part of a long-term food system in this country,
Yeah.
we need every Canadian to be thinking about what that means
Yeah.
in their own neighborhoods. Start with your neighborhood,
Yeah. 100%. Your own community.
your own communities.
Yeah.
And then if you do that, you're making a bigger difference than you even know.
Totally. And the answer, because this always comes, how are we going to afford it? How are we going to afford it? It pays for itself.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Like
How
it's
can
an
we
investment
not
in the
afford it?
future. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like it's just like when
Yeah.
you look at the economics, it pays for itself.
Yeah, truly.
So let's get our government, let's get our people, and with dollars, we control
Yeah.
it all.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's
If we
only
demand it, it
If
will
we demand
change.
it, it will change.
Yeah.
So let's
Yeah.
demand it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there are only a few big corporations causing all this, and there are several of us who don't like it.
Absolutely.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
All right.
Let's do it.
Anarchy.
Burn it down.
Let's
Yeah.
go. Let's go. All right. Thank you. Another edition of the Bread and Butter Podcast.
Yeah.
Thanks, Paul Stewart.
Yeah,
Awesome
thanks, guys.
to have you on. This is
My pleasure.
We're gonna do some good things.
And thanks for talking about Canada Day,
Yep.
Canada Food Day.
Yep.
Actually.
Yeah, Food Day
And-
Canada.
Yeah,
and
that's right.
also, thanks for not making it a statutory holiday.
Yeah, no, we weren't. That wasn't the plan. That wasn't the plan.
I appreciate that.
Yeah,
Let's bring some
problem.
awareness. I
Yeah.
love it.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Okay, thank
Calen,
you.
it's great to have you back.
Remember to be real kind.
I will. You be nice, man.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Bread and Butter Collective's membership includes the following local businesses: 2% Jazz, Bunny's Kitchen, Buzz Coffee House, Eagle Light, Big Wheel Burger, Blue Mountain Solutions, Bodega Tapas Wine Bar, Eva Schnitzel House, Farmsgate Foods and Catering, Victoria Chocolate and Company, Drum Roaster Coffee, Habit Coffee, Foo Asian Street Food, the Culinary Arts Program at Camosun, Cafe Fantastico, Fall Epi, Harold Street Brewworks, Hey Happy, House of Botang, Nikkei Ramen Ya, Jenny Marie's Cracker Company, La Pasta, La Rue Patisserie, Mocha House, Part and Parcel, Poco a Pinto Bar, Pizzeria Prima Strada, Keating Pizza, Roast, Table 9 Consulting, Sherwood Cafe and Bar, Sweets by Selena, The Collective Wine Bar and Kitchen, The Drake, Tapa Bar, The Nimble Bar Company, Ruth and Dean, The Whole Beast, The Wienery, Spoon's Diner, Truffles-inspired catering, and Zambries.
To hear more from the Bread and Butter Collective, go to checknews.ca/podcasts on Check Plus, or find us on your favorite podcasting platform.